show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio.
To you, my Yah, do I lift up my soul. And trusting you, he always kept me whole. And left my enemies deep in their holes. Let none that wait on Yahweh be ashamed. Put shame on those who sin without a cause. Show me your ways, please teach me your laws. Oh Elohim of my salvation, I'm staying down and patient. As a child, all the while I'm waiting. Remember not the sins of my youth. Lead me in your truth, and he'll give your soul ease. The earth shall remain inherited by a seed. The secret of Yah's will who fears Elohim, a fool believes everything, and to every word spoken, you can't take heed unless you hear somebody curse, you know you did the same thing. That's why I'm begging Yah for mercy, and his love and kindness, cause I know that I ain't worthy. Captivity is taking hold upon me. Put frighten me and now we flee from fallen leaves. The grinding grief from all the blood our people seen. And now we cry, where is the word from Elohim? And so we feel that we are his wives to be submissive, but we dismiss it. It is of this reason we have fallen victim to the lies that your root will prey and pursue. Rebellious of his son, forgotten that he is one. Broken the holy ordinance, rejection of reproof. Then acknowledge what we do. Now we return back to the truth.
Yah's word is the truth. Yah's decrees is the proof. Local 12 just released the scoop. It's the summer of Sam. They calling the Pam. Made us worship the son of man. And somehow that the moon, they stole our style and gave it to Rothschild. Now we exhaust the vow, but hit the turnstile. Yah's Nabi set the crooked things straight. Praise Yah from the rising to the evening to the closing the gate. Exposing the fake. Yah give the truth a day break. Now the liars can't escape and the haters can't relate to the light that truth makes. See the wicked's pride deflate. You adore Yah, magnify Yah, cause he's great.
Shalom, shalom, shalom. Giving all honor, all glory, and all praises unto the mighty Elohim, the Elohim of Yitzchak, Yaakov, and Abraham, or Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Yahweh, the only Elohim, the only King, the only lawgiver, and the only Savior of Israel in the world. Give all praises to the mighty Yah for allowing us to be here for another program, bringing you nothing but the truth. I am your host for this evening's program, Mowreh IshYAH, here at the House of YIsraEL of Cincinnati, located at 1907 Vine Street. Again, bringing you nothing but the truth. I'd like to welcome all our listeners and viewers to this program on this, the 15th day of the 7th month, which also marks the season and the time of Yah's holy time or holy day called the Feast of Tabernacles. And we're going to teach nothing but the truth about Yah's holy laws today, including the Feast of Tabernacles. We're going to deal with current events and the reason the black man and woman in America today are oppressed, shut out, set aside, and all the other ills that have befalled our people. We're going to teach what Yahweh has to say about his holy people, and if we can exercise self-determination or not. And we're going to bring you for the next few days the truth and nothing but the truth about Yahweh's people here in our captivity. Why we're in this situation, what has gone on, and what has made up the reasons to why we're here. The history behind why all the world religions seem to have it out for Israel. The history behind why all the false teachings have been taught to the children of Yahweh. The history and the current events of why and what is happening to the black man and woman in America today. You're going to learn the truth from the Most High of what he has to say about how his sons and his daughters are being treated and why they're being treated the way we're being treated in our captivity. But tonight, we're going to speak about Yahweh and his truth about self-determination. And who is this Yah? Yahweh is the Elohim, or the power, or the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the only one. He is the only king, the only lawgiver, the only judge, the only redeemer, and the only savior of Israel and the world. And Yahweh is not a part-time Elohim. You may have thought that all the oppression, the troubles, and the vexations that are happening to the black man and woman in America has gone unseen by the Almighty. But Yahweh is the only Elohim. And everything that has happened to his people, everything that is happening to his people, and everything that will happen to Yah's people is recorded in the Holy Scriptures of truth, the book of Yah, and what you know as the Old Testament. The word of the Most High and Yahweh himself has not missed everything that has happened to you and I. His all-seeing eye has seen it all. Therefore, we will show you what Yahweh has said. And this is this Yah. Now, why is this different from all the other Elohim? All the other gods that you have learned about? All the other teachings that have been brought to you, including Judaism? Because don't get it mistaken. We know that our people have been largely influenced by Christianity. The majority of the children of Israel in America today are Christians. Or in other words, the majority of African Americans are Christians. Then a great number of African Americans follow after the religion of Islam. But you have many of our people that acknowledge that they belong to the children of Israel, but all of their teachings and all of their ways they have learned from the Jewish man, the religion that is called Judaism. And we're going to show you why Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and all the other isms have led you astray. First off, as I said, we're going to deal with this self-determination. And why? Because what is self-determination? Self-determination, as defined, is the freedom to live as one chooses, where you can act and decide to do things without asking anyone else. It's the ability to determine how to form your own government. It's the ability to do this without any actions from other nations, without being colonized, and not having to go through a higher authoritative power to receive a charter to act as a nation. Self-determination, brothers and sisters, is the ability to have your own land and do as you please on that land. To allow the laws and a moral code that you know is right to dictate yourself, not anybody else. And we need to ask ourselves, can we exercise, no matter how much money you might make right now, no matter how big your house is today, no matter how fancy your car might be, can we say that we as a nation, as a people, and as an individual can determine our own destiny, our own outcomes, our own movements, our own everything without going through somebody else? And when you be honest with yourself and you look at it, you know the answer is no. You know the answer is, if you wanted to do whatever you wanted to do, you would have to give up something in order to conform to the powers that are over the industries, the land, and whatever else you want to do. And therefore, you're not a free people. We're not free. No matter how much money you're paid today, the bottom line is you're not free. And why is that? And since you're not free, what do we need to do to get free? But Yahweh, He's the only one, the only God, the only Elohim that has spoke about the plight of the black man and can identify who the African American is today, or the Afro-Caribbean, or the Afro-South American, the Afro-Brazilian. Yah is the only one that can tell you who the African English or the Africans in England, the Africans in Spain, the Africans throughout Europe or wherever that have been scattered by way of the slave trade that ravished our people over these last few centuries. Yahweh is the only one that can identify you and tell you why this is happening to you. You won't see that in the Talmud. The Talmud does not speak one word about the plight of the black man and woman in America. It does not say a thing about how you're to conduct yourself in captivity and why you're in captivity and what you need to do to get out of captivity. It doesn't identify you. It doesn't lift you up. The Talmud is a book that a few Jewish men came together to write so they can alter the word of the Most High to their own devices. Judaism has usurped the religion and the word and the way and the spirituality that Yah gave his people in the Torah. They've changed the way you read Hebrew. They've changed the way you look at Israelite culture. And they've used the Talmud to do it. And they've used the various literatures that they have, especially the Talmud, to change the perspective of what a Hebrew is. And now you think that a Hebrew is some Jewish man that rocks his head on a wall somewhere in the state of Israel, which this is not the case. But Yah's the only one, and his book is the only book that tells you who you are. Christianity does not speak of the plight of the black man or woman today. The New Testament does not tell you about your captivity or about your oppression. As a matter of fact, the New Testament lets you know that if you are a slave, that you need to submit to your masters, even the mean ones, that you must bow down to them even if they beat you, which is a complete contradiction to the Torah that lets you know that if a servant, a bondservant, escapes of his master because of abuse, that you should allow him to stay with you and give him free range of wherever he wants to live, and you shall not send him back unto his master. The Most High's word lets you know that you should not beat your servants. If you do, then you must let them go free. Whereas the New Testament allows you and tells you to be submissive with all fear, as if you feared the Lord. And we're going to show you that. Also, let's not forget, the Quran also, not only does it not speak of the black man and woman in America and the plight, even though many of our people in Chicago and in the other cities are influenced by the Nation of Islam in New York, in Chicago, in Los Angeles, in Oakland, Houston, Atlanta, all the various cities, right here in Cincinnati, the Nation of Islam. But does the Nation of Islam, teach you how to return to the mighty Yah? No, it does not. Does the Quran teach you about your plight, tell you who you are, and identify you? No, it does not. On the contrary, the Quran lets you know in Surah 105 that black faces shall be damned. And we're going to show you all of this throughout these teachings this week. But Yahweh's book does tell you who you are. If you go to the book of Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, and begin reading around the 41st verse, Yahweh says, because of our disobedience, in verse 41, that thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. Nowhere will you read in the Quran, in the New Testament, or in the Talmud, or in the Kabbalah, or in the Vedas, or in the book of the coming forth by day or the coming forth by night, that you will go into captivity if you rebel against the Most High. Nowhere will you read that it says in verse 43 that the stranger that is within thee shall get thee up above very high, and thou shalt come down very low. Nowhere will you read that he shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. You won't read this in the Quran. You won't read this in the New Testament. You won't read this in the Quran written by Noble Drew Ali. You won't read this in the Final Call. But you will read it in the Book of Yah, letting you know why you have student loans, letting you know why you have to go to the welfare office, letting you know why you have to go to Fix Money Now and title loans and all the other places and the banks and wherever else you got to go to get money, to get loans so you can have something. Whereas your enemy, who is the oppressor, who is the ruling class of this country, what you know as the white man and woman, where they can go and get money without having to be loaned to, where they have inheritance and estate stored up for them for years on end. But you have to go to them, those same people who have been your sworn enemies, you have to go to them so you can have anything. But you won't read that in the other books. Neither will you read in the Talmud, like it says in verse 45. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon you, and shall pursue you, and overtake you, till you be destroyed, because you hearken not unto the voice of Yah thy Elohim, to keep his commandments and his statutes, which he commanded thee. And they shall be, and listen, this is what you won't read. This is an identifying marker, what we're about to read. It says, and they shall be, what shall be? The curses, the things that are upon you, that are afflicting you, that are showing you that there's something very wrong with your situation right now. They shall be upon you for a sign and for a wonder, and upon your seed forever. This is what will be upon you if you do not hearken unto the words of the mighty Yah. You won't read that in the Quran. You won't read that in the Talmud. You won't read that in the New Testament. You won't read that on the walls of Egypt. Because you serve not Yahweh your Elohim with joyfulness and with gladness of heart for the abundance of all things. You won't see that. This is not only telling you why you have these curses on you, it's telling you how you know that you are Yah's people. Because this is upon Yah's people. This is not upon the Christian. This is not upon the Jewish man. This is not upon the Muslim. But this is upon the children of Israel. And who are the children of Israel suffering this today? Read verse 48 and ask yourself, who is going through this? In verse 48, it reads, therefore shall you serve your enemies, which Yahweh, you hear who's sending them against you, which Yahweh shall send against you in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in lack or want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon your neck until he has destroyed you. You won't read that in the Talmud. I've never seen in the Quran where it's said these words to let you know that Yahweh has done this to you. That if you want to drink water, you have to get it from Poland Springs. If you want food, you have to go get Amish chicken. If you want clothes, you have to go to Old Navy. If you want anything, you got to go to J.P. Morgan's bank. I haven't read where the Talmud or the New Testament or the book of the coming forth by day and night, which you know as the book of dead. I haven't read where it says this, letting you know it's not identifying you or your plight or the plight of your people at all, which begs the question, why are you reading something that doesn't speak about you at all? Most High Yah also said this in the book of Jeremiah, the 16th chapter. Again, showing you that Yah is the only Elohim that has spoke of the black plight and can identify the African American. And you know, the African American needs to be identified, because what is an African American? That's Africa, the largest continent on the planet of Earth. Even though they told you Asia was, it's Africa. America. There's 3 land masses named America. You got North America, Central America, and South America. Which America are you from? Which part of Africa do you belong to? Well, Yahweh can easily identify what African you are. Because you go to Nigerians and say you're African, they say, yes, I'm Nigerian. You go to a Zimbabwean, they say, yes, I'm from Zimbabwe. You go to somebody from Congo, they'll say, yeah, I'm Congolese. Somebody from Ethiopia, they say, I'm Ethiopian. But you, black man and woman, you say, I'm black. And I never seen where Yahweh had a nation from the Crayola box. But yet he called you by a name. And you can find out that name that Yah called you by if you look in the book that he gave to those people who are suffering these things today. And that is the children of Israel. And that is the book of Yah. And in the book of Yah, in the book of Jeremiah, it reads in the 16th chapter, starting at the 10th verse, it says, and it shall come to pass, when you shall show this people all these words, and they shall say unto thee, wherefore hath Yahweh pronounced all this great evil against us? Or what is our iniquity? Or what is our sin that we have committed against Yahweh our Elohim? Then thou shalt say unto them, because your fathers have forsaken me, saith Yah, and have walked after other Elohim, or other gods, and have served them, and have worshipped them, and have forsaken me, and have not kept my law. And ye have done worse than your fathers. For behold, ye walk every one after the imagination of his evil heart, that ye may not hearken unto me. Wherefore will I cast you out of this land, into a land that you know not, neither you nor your fathers, and there you shall serve other gods day and night, where I will not show you favor. I'm going to show you what not being shown favor is. You have a situation in where in Nevada, Las Vegas, to be specific, the other week, a white gentleman, a European American, opened up fire on a crowd of hundreds of people, maybe thousands, with fully automatic machine guns, ammo that is enough ammo that should be for a war. He busted open a hotel window 300 plus feet above ground, peered out, and shot up a whole crowd of country music fans, shooting and wounding over 200 people and murdering over 50 in one night is what happened. A white man. And have you heard them call him a crazed domestic terrorist that hates white people? No, you haven't. They're even reluctant to call him a terrorist. They're reluctant to call him a domestic terrorist. They're reluctant to even call him crazy. but it's been labeled as the worst shooting in modern history of America. But so far, in Chicago alone this year, 3,000 lives have been wounded by gunfire. 3,000. In 1 weekend alone, 50 or more people have been killed over the summer in Chicago. 80 people or more shot. Hundreds of people shot a week. Hundreds of dead bodies. But you know the majority of those dead bodies? They look like you and I. So that doesn't get included into modern history of America. It's not included into the modern story of his story of America. Yet you believe yourself to be an African American, and you're not written amongst the modern history of America, the shootings of America. You must ask yourself, why is that? Because Yah said they will show you no favor. You won't be looked at as favorable. 3,000 of your people are shot, hundreds of your people are killed, and they don't even make a mark in the book. But over 50 of their people are killed, and now we must do something about it. But Yah said they will show you no favor. Therefore, behold, in verse 14, the days come, saith Yah, that it shall no more be said, Yah liveth, that brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. But Yah liveth, that brought up the children of Israel out of the land of the north and from the lands where he hath driven them, and I will bring them again into their land, and that I gave unto their fathers. Yes, that's right. This isn't our land, and Yahweh will bring us out of this land. Are you not in the land of North America today? So Yah is the only one that has spoken of this plight. No other God, no other book, no other group of people have spoken so intrinsically and specifically about your plight in this country. But people may ask, though Yah, you say this Yah has spoken of us, didn't the Christ of the New Testament save us? Because you got all of our people going around today talking about that they're saved. And I'm going to show you why they believe they're saved. If you go to the book in the New Testament of Galatians, the 4th chapter, the 3rd chapter, I should say, the 13th verse, you're going to see what's been taught. And I'm going to show you how foolish this really is. How deceived you've been. The Most High said that his servants will set the crooked thing straight. And I'm going to show you this utter crooked thing so we can set it straight. In the book of Galatians, this 3rd chapter, in the 13th verse, it reads, Christ, this is Paul. This is Paul speaking. They have this apostle they call Paul, who did not keep the law at all. In Galatians 3:13, it reads, Christ hath redeemed us from the curse of the law, being made a curse for us. For it is written, cursed is everyone that hangs on a tree, that the blessing of Abraham might come on the Gentiles through the Christ of the New Testament, that we might receive the promise of the Spirit through faith. Do you hear what he said? That Christ has redeemed you from the curse of the law. And what I'm reading to you, what I just read to you, in Deuteronomy and in Jeremiah is the curse of the law. Because if you don't do the law, you will be cursed. But the New Testament teaches that you are redeemed from the curse of the law through Christ, because he was hung for you. And all you got to ask yourself, if you are redeemed from the curse of the law, if Christ redeemed you from the curse of the law, why is it that this happens to us? And I'm going to show you what this is. Go to the book of Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, and I'm reading out of the curse of the law. And you can see for yourself if this curse of the law is upon the Gentiles or is it upon Israel, which would be you and I. Is it upon, who is it upon? Because you know what the liars have taught you. They've taught you that you're a Gentile. And that's far beyond the truth. The black man and woman in America is not a Gentile whatsoever. But they taught you you're Gentiles. But Yahweh said this about what happens if you don't keep the law. In Deuteronomy 28, we'll begin reading at verse 28. And ask yourself, really we're going to begin reading at verse 27. And ask yourself, is this affecting you or is this upon all the other nations? It says in verse 27, Yahweh will smite you with the botch of Egypt. And what is the botch? What is the botch? The botch is the inflammation. And why did the Egyptians suffer from inflammation? It's the same reason Americans suffer from inflammation today. Yes, this is about your health. Why would the Almighty, if the Most High was some spook God, if the Most High was some religious man-made up God, why is he speaking about your health? If man made God, then wouldn't man make God be catering to the food and the health you want to do? The way you want to do it? Of course he would. You made him. You make a robot, you make the robot clean your house. You don't make the robot get up and tell you why you need to clean your own house, why you need to keep your house holy, why you need to go out there and run 5 miles. You made the robot to do it for you. So why are you going to make a God to tell you after your best interest? You made a God to tell you after your desires that have nothing to do with your best. So why is it, if Yahweh is a spook deity, is he telling you about inflammation? He said the botch of Egypt, because they was eating a bunch of flesh. They were eating a bunch of foods that wasn't good for them, doing a bunch of things that wasn't good for them. Pizza, pastas, all kind of cheesy breads, meat, raw meat, half-cooked meat, old meat, preserved foods. You know they knew how to preserve foods. Look at the way they preserve a dead body. Think they ain't know how to preserve foods? Well, that's what inflammation gets you. The botch of Egypt, and with the hemorrhoids, which are hemorrhoids. Keep on eating the food that your enemy give you, you're going to suffer hemorrhoids. And with the scab, yes, that's what happens to your skin. It dries out and gets scaly from eating what this enemy has you eating. And with the itch, all kind of itches, from dirt, from crabs, from all kind of diseases. The itch, lice, because that's just crabs of the head. You're getting all kind of itch, whereof you cannot be healed from, meaning it don't go away. It will return upon returning and return some more. Yahweh shall smite you with madness. You know what madness means? It means insanity. What is insanity? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, but you keep on getting the same result. What does that mean? You keep on going to the job expecting to get rich, and they don't raise your pay, but they raise the rent, they raise the mortgage, they raise the car note, they raise the water bill, they raise the light bill, they raise the air conditioner bill, they raise the cable bill, they raise the food bill, but they ain't giving you a raise at your job. But you keep going to that job expecting to get rich. That's insanity. You keep going to the church expecting to be saved, but they keep on asking you for more money, and you just keep on getting poorer. But you expecting that this is the 15th time I'm going to baptize myself, and I'm going to be saved this time. But you're not. You keep on going to the liquor store thinking that this is the last time you're going to walk in there. Well, if you keep walking in the liquor store and thinking you're not going to get drunk, you're smited with madness. If you keep on going to the church and you still haven't heard a word from the Christ of the New Testament, you're smited with madness. If you keep on praying 5 times a day to Mecca and you have never seen the Mahdi or any spaceship come up out of the sky with Muhammad or Farrakhan or Malcolm X on it, then you're smited with madness. If you keep on telling the police that you're a national citizen, you're your own person, you have sovereign rights, and they keep on arresting you, you're smited with madness. He also said, you're going to be smited with blindness. And what is blindness? Meaning you're not going to be able to perceive the things that are right in front of you. They murdered Mike Brown. They murdered this young man on the street and laid him there and left him there for dead. Murdered him. And you know they murdered him now because all the things that came out a couple months ago that it was proven that Mike Brown didn't steal from the store. It was proven that Mike Brown was on his knees with his hands up when he was shot. That the police officer lied. But he got $1 million to do an interview. But what do we say go do? Let's go vote. This is blindness. You went to the church and they said that Christ will save you when you're dead. Well, excuse me. Who's ever came back from the dead to tell us that, yeah, everything they said is true? Nobody does. Nobody has came back from the dead to tell you everything they taught you is true. And isn't that a convenient lie? Hey, die and you'll be in paradise. You can't prove that. They selling you down the river. But you go and you see this all day, but you don't see it. Because we're smited with blindness and astonishment of heart. Ask yourself, are you delivered from this curse of the law? Verse 29 says, and you shall grope at noonday as the blind gropeth at darkness. And thou shalt prosper, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways. And thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore. And no man shall redeem thee. Now the book of YAH said no man's going to redeem you. But the New Testament said that a man did redeem you. Even though Deuteronomy, the 24th chapter, the 16th verse, says that the soul that sinneth, it shall die. The father shall not be put to death for the sons, neither shall the sons be put to death for the father, but every man shall die for his own sin. Yet the New Testament tells you that Christ died for you. Well, that's just been a lie. That's you've been taught. And since you've been taught this lie and you've walked after this lie, we've been dying because of our ignorance. Isn't that what it says in Hosea, the 4th chapter, the 6th verse? Hosea 4 and 6 says, "For my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge." And are we not destroyed today because we do not realize that our enemies have taught us death? Look in the book of Ezekiel, the 20th chapter. In Ezekiel 20, and I'm going to get right to it, it says in verse 24, it says, "Because they had not executed my judgments, but had despised my statutes, and had polluted my Sabbaths, and their eyes were after their fathers' idols. Wherefore I gave them also statutes that were not good, and judgments whereby they should not live." We can't live by the judgments of the nations. They have given us things that are not good for us. Yet we're still saying, even though right here in Cincinnati, Ohio, a couple of years ago, a brother was driving on his way home. A police officer that didn't even have the jurisdiction to pull him over, and attempted to reach into this man's car on his person, breaking the so-called Constitution, Bill of Rights, that you have a right to your own body. This man reached in, and as he reached in, this person, Sam DeBose, said, "Nah, you ain't about to violate me." He tries to drive off. This police officer pulls his gun out, shoots him in the head, and murders him. He goes to trial. He doesn't get convicted. They take it to another trial. He doesn't get convicted. And you would think that after the second time, and if you know about the order of two as we've been teaching, this is when you know Yahweh has established the matter. And after the second time, you would think that people would say, okay, these statutes and these judgments, we can't live by them because we don't have vengeance, justice, consequences for the things that are done to us. No, what did the people ask? Take it to trial again. Please take it to trial again. Justice. We want justice. They marched down the street and everything. And of course, your enemy came on TV and said, no, we're not going to try it again. And they didn't try it again because you can't live by these things. And that's what the Most High said. And if you also go to the book, we just read that. All right. Well, let's look here. And what have we been talking about? We've been showing you that the Most High, He's the only one that's spoken about our plight, that's spoken about our situation. These things haven't gone unseen by the mighty Elohim. And if you are free, are you able to exercise self-determination? Now, as I said earlier, this day and this night now is the time of Yah's holy season, the Feast of Tabernacles. This is that time. It's the 15th day of the 7th month. And why is this time so important? And what does this have to do with our ability to exercise self-determination? Well, let me show you what it says in the book of Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. In the book of Leviticus, chapter 23, if we go there, shalom to my fellow brother Mowreh Napthtali.
Shalom, praise Yah.
Praise the mighty Yah. And we're going to the book of Leviticus, the 23rd chapter, and we're going to begin reading at verse 39.
Leviticus 23 and 39. Also in the 15th day of the 7th month, when you have gathered in the fruit of the land.
Yes, when you've gathered in the fruit of the land. Whose land? It doesn't say when you got your paycheck. It said when you have gathered in the fruit of the land. Your land,
Ye shall keep a feast unto Yahweh 7 days.
And who is doing that today? Are you doing that? Or did you have to write a letter to your employer and ask if you can go to services? See, if you have self-determination, there would be no letter needed to be written to your employer. If you had self-determination, you wouldn't be building a tent on your front yard of the land that you're paying rent on. But you would have been doing this freely. As it says, gather in the fruit of the land, you shall keep a feast unto Yah 7 days.
And on the first day shall be a Sabbath.
Which means you would rest. You would cease from work. You wouldn't have to go to work. The whole land would cease. Everybody in the land would stop like they do on Christmas. And Christmas isn't a holiday for you and I. Christmas is for the enemies of our people. They shut down everything. Yet, don't you go into work on Christmas Day because you need the money to pay rent that's coming up in the next 6 days? Yes, you do.
And on the 8th day shall be a Sabbath.
And do you keep 2 Sabbaths within the course of 8 days here in this land freely without asking anybody, without getting permission from anybody, while having to make sure the store, you got to go to the store the night before and prepare and all this kind of stuff? If you was having and being able to practice self-determination, you would be able to do this freely.
And you shall take you on the first day the boughs of goodly trees,
Yes.
branches of palm trees, and the boughs of thick trees, willows of the brook. And you shall rejoice before Yahweh your Elohim in 7 days.
Now, some of us might live in Florida. Some of us might live in southern Texas. Some of us might live in southern California. But Yahweh wouldn't give you a law that you have to go and get the branches of palm trees if he know you was in a land, in an area that might not have palm trees. Some of us, a great deal of Israelites live in Chicago, where there's not a palm tree in sight. New York City, let alone a palm tree, you can hardly find a tree. Why would Yahweh give you a law that you got to go get willows from the brook? And at this time in Canada, where our people are, the brook might be frozen, let alone getting a willow. Yahweh would never give you a law that you can't keep. Yahweh didn't tell you to make a booth out of plywood and popsicle sticks. He said, go and get you this and dwell in the booth for 7 days. When I travel down the streets where Israelites are, I don't see a bunch of booths, because you can't practice self-determination in the place of your captivity. This is a holy day that leans on, that rests on, that must be exercised in your own land, because this is a holy day that represents the children of Israel being free. The children of Israel being delivered, because they had to dwell in booths for 40 years in the wilderness, so we dwell in booths 7 days. It says in verse 43 that your generations may know that I made the children of Israel to dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. I am Yahweh your Elohim. Now that's the law of the Feast of Tabernacles. We must dwell in booths. Now, how can you do that if you are not able to practice self-determination? Go to the book of Deuteronomy, the 16th chapter. In Deuteronomy chapter 16, we'll begin reading at verse 16.
It reads, 3 times in a year shall all the males appear before Yahweh thy Elohim in the place he shall choose.
You see, not only do you need to be able to exercise self-determination to practice the Feast of Tabernacles, the only way you're to appear before Yahweh thy Elohim in the place which he shall choose is if you can exercise self-determination. These holy days are indicative of the fact that you are free. Yahweh would never tell you to do something and you're not free to be able to do it. He would never command you to do it, knowing that you're not going to be able to do it if you're not free. That's why he says that 3 times in the year you shall appear before Yahweh your Elohim in the place which he should choose. In the Feast of Tabernacles, and the Feast of Unleavened Bread,
and in the Feast of Weeks, and the Feast of Tabernacles, and they shall not appear before Yahweh empty.
Yes. Yahweh said you do this in the land which he shall choose. We don't do this in the land he didn't choose. We don't do this where he has not placed his name. We do this where he has placed his name. And Yahweh placed his name in Jerusalem. And that's where you get that's where you're able to exercise your self-determination. And how do I know it's Jerusalem? Because Yahweh said it's Jerusalem. Where did he say it's Jerusalem? In the book of 1 Chronicles, the 6th chapter. 2 Chronicles, the 6th chapter. Begin reading at around the 4th verse.
2 Chronicles, the 6th chapter, verse 4. And he said, Blessed be Yahweh Elohim of Israel, who have with his hands fulfilled that which he spake with his mouth to my father David, saying, Since the day that I brought forth my people out of the land of Egypt, I chose no city among all the tribes of Israel to build an house in, that my name might be there. Neither chose I any man to be a ruler over my people Israel.
So from the time that Yah came and brought his people from Egypt, he said, I didn't designate a place that the children of Israel should build a house for me. And I didn't set a ruler up for it to be over them of their own people. I didn't do that yet. But in verse 6, he says, but now I have chosen. Yahweh is saying this. He chose
Jerusalem,
that my name might be there, and have chosen
David
to be over my people Israel. See, this is Yahweh showing you he gave you a place to exercise self-determination to the maximum extent. If you could sit and have the king that looks like me and you, a black man with locks in his head, with black wives and black children, all of them dressed in royalty, in the house of the Most High, sitting on a high mountain where you have a black priest with black kings and black queens and black nobles and black generals and black judges, all telling you how to do things in the way of Yah. Do you see that in America? You got one black judge amongst a bunch of white men, and this man don't even speak when they do judgments. You had one black president and everybody around him was a white man or woman. And he didn't stand up for you. When they shot up the school in Sandy Hook, he cried for these white little children. But when they shooting up Chicago, the place where this man lived and was from for years, you didn't see him get on TV and shed tears. Because this is not the place where you're able to exercise self-determination. So the Feast of Tabernacles is today. The Feast of Tabernacles is this time. And we should praise Yahweh that we're able to acknowledge that it is the time where we should dwell in booths. And you should teach your children and let them know what it means. But also, this is also the time where we got to understand we're not in our own land. Because if we were in our own land, we would be rejoicing for 7 straight days. And we don't see us rejoicing right now. What you do see, and even by me teaching this, and what you do see is this, the Feast of Tabernacles. Today, the code word, the brand new code word for black empowerment, for black joy, for black self-love is called Black Identity Extremist. That's what the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigations, released by accident a few days ago. A document that entails and instructs and describes black identity extremist. What is that? That sounds like the same old thing. Some years ago, it was just the black hate groups, or the black supremacists, or black nationalists, or Black Panthers, or the civil rights movement. And why is the FBI continually putting out reports that's showing you how threatening a black person that knows about their identity and being extreme, so-called? But this Black Identity Extremist document that the Federal Bureau of Investigations by accident released a few days ago explained that black nationalist movements such as Black Lives Matter and black nationalists and activists that are standing up and protesting and speaking out against police brutality are becoming increasingly dangerous, and that all the law enforcement officers of the country should be on alert because you have these black identity extremists. But you have these white supremacists that are killing people every day. A white supremacist walked into the church in South Carolina and shot 9 black people for the purposes that he stated out of his own mouth that he wants to start a race war. Donald Trump, the president of the United Snakes of America, said that the white supremacists and Nazis and white nationalists that killed their own white people because they was on the side of the carpetbaggers, as they call them, of the white ones that wanted to be for civil rights. They killed one of them. And Donald Trump said there was some very fine people. But yet the FBI releases a document called Black Identity Extremists to make sure they look out for you and I, because we're telling you that David is a black man, that Aaron was a black man, Moses was a black man. And you cannot have self-determination when you're in a place that is telling you that you're a black identity extremist. Now you can't even speak out the way you want to if you fear them because you're labeled as a black identity extremist. And what did the Most High say about all of this? It's in the book of Deuteronomy 28, and we're going to start at verse 64, because all of this is going on. And we're not in our own land. And you have people labeling you a black identity extremist, a BIE. And if you think I'm making this up, just Google it, Bing it, Yahoo search it, look it up. Black identity extremist is what they're calling you today. 20 years ago, you was a black supremacist. And they had a document called the King Alfred Plan, or Rex 84, which is still in effect. In time before that, it was called COINTELPRO, which means Counterintelligence Program. The main purpose to stop the rise of the black messiah, to unify the black people in America. This is truth that you could look up. This is what the United States have been doing to you and I for years on end. They tell you that the FBI was formed because of prohibition, alcohol, and investigations in gambling and things in that manner. But the FBI was formed off of the coattails of taking down the largest black organization in the country and maybe the world at the time. That was called the United Negro Improvement Association, led by Marcus Garvey. It was the first investigation and mission of the newly formed, wasn't even formed yet, Federal Bureau of Investigation. Your boy J. Edgar Hoover was the one running that thing. And it was your man J. Edgar Hoover who released COINTELPRO. It was your boy Richard Nixon that released the King Alfred Plan. Your man Ronald Reagan that fought the war on drugs. Your friend Bill Clinton that put out the Crimes Act that made it 3 strikes, 3 felonies, and you're sent up for life. That took the Rockefeller drug laws that was started in New York City and made it a national thing. And now you get locked up for having a little bit of crack cocaine on you for 25 years. The Crimes Bill Act. Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, who you wanted to vote for, put that out there. And now you have a swath of black men and women in prison for the last 20 years because of these people who you put your trust in. And now today, because a black man shoot up a few police officers in Dallas, Texas, because black people start an organization called Black Lives Matter, and because black people are telling you that it's not right to kill us, now they're calling you black identity extremists. It's just the same old thing with a new label. That's all it is. But why is this happening? While you saying we can celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles in this land, well, you can't. Because you can't practice self-determination. And why can't you? Go to the book of Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, the 64th verse.
And it reads, "And Yahweh shall scatter thee among all people, from one end of the earth even unto the other."
When the Most High scatters you from the whole, amongst the whole earth, you're no longer in your own land. Go ahead.
"And there thou shalt serve other deities, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known."
Our fathers don't know no Elohim named Hashem. Hashem. What is a Hashem? Hashem means the name. And that's what the Jewish man has taught our people to call the Most High. Hashem. I'm not going to call the Most High Hashem. The name. What name? The name they want you to call him. They don't want you to call him the name that he gave you. What he told Moses in Exodus, the 3rd chapter, and he said, "Yahweh, the Elohim of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, this is my name forever, and my memorial to all generations." But the Jewish man has you call him the name, or Adon, which means Lord or Master. The Christian man has you call him God, or Jesus. The Muslim has you call him Allah, which is all he is Elohim or Elo in Arabic, but they done turned the Allah deity into some moon god. And you're serving gods of wood and stone, which neither you nor your fathers have known. And how are you going to serve another God? And how are you going to allow your doctrine to be taught by a man that is not of your own people, and then claim you can exercise self-determination to its maximum extent by practicing the Feast of Tabernacles in a land that is not yours? Well, it's impossible. But Yah said we'd be smited with madness. Keep reading.
"And amongst these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest.
How are you going to find ease in these nations when you have people that rule over you that are making it increasingly hard for you to do simple things like go to work and get paid enough to pay your bills? Yet they're making millions upon billions of dollars. But you find no ease. Even black sports mega rich personalities are not finding ease. Colin Kaepernick can't find a job. Michael Jordan can't stop getting ridiculed. Kobe Bryant couldn't avoid being charged with or accused of rape. Nelly just got accused of rape. Bill Cosby just got accused of rape. O.J. Simpson just got out of prison for stealing his own stuff. You will not find ease in this land, no matter your status. Keep reading.
But Yahweh shall give thee there a trembling heart, failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind. And thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and thou shalt have none assurance of thy life.
Ask me this and tell me this. The people that live in the worst of our ghettos, in the hoods of Cincinnati, in the hoods of New York and Chicago and Atlanta and all the other cities and inner cities throughout the country and the world where our people are scattered. Do you have assurance of your life when you step outside? 3,000 people have been shot in the city of Chicago this year. I don't think you could have much assurance of your life. How in the world can you walk around knowing that your life is safe? That there are laws and judgments set up that will protect you from being murdered mindlessly. Babies are killed just because they're playing outside. People in the cities, in the inner cities, even me, my own self, did not know what it was to go to a park in my own neighborhood and play basketball. I had to wait till the sickest part of the crack era was gone. I'm trying to tell you, in the 1980s, from the age of 1 to the age of about 10, I didn't play in the park in my own neighborhood. I didn't know what the park in my own neighborhood looked like. We had to wait till they built a whole new park. And today, you got people in Chicago and other places that can't even play outside because of all the shooting. There's not assurance for your life in that situation. Keep reading.
In the morning thou shalt say, would it Elohim, it were even?
Mm-hmm.
And at even thou shalt say, would it Elohim, it were morning? For the fear of thine heart wherewith thou shalt fear, and for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see. And Yahweh shall bring thee into Egypt again.
And you want it to be proven to us that we don't have our land? Here Yahweh is saying that we're going to go into Egypt. What for us meant captivity. For us meant oppression. For us meant slavery. Yah said we're going to go into Egypt
again with ships.
By ships. Now you can't. Now you got to understand. We walked out of Egypt. We walked into Egypt. So when he said you're going into Egypt, he's talking about captivity by ships. And we're the only people that done got forced on slave ships, cargo ships, and brought into a new age of Egypt by ships, which by way I said that thou shalt not see again. Go ahead.
And thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen.
And is that not what happened to you and I? And then no man shall buy you, which means nobody's going to redeem you. And so if they've taught you that Christ has redeemed you from the curse of the law, just ask them, why did this happen to us today? Because we've been lied to. We've been bamboozled, tricked, run amok, as they say. The wool has been pulled over our eyes. But Yahweh is the only one that have spoken of a situation and a time where we will be redeemed, avenged, liberated, saved, and get our reparations. Yah's the only one that has said this. And you're going to learn that the Talmud has no interest in telling you what Yahweh said. The Talmud tells you that there is a new year for trees, and a new year for the people, and a new year for spiritual purposes. 3 different new years, and they give them at 3 different times. And you know which one they have all the people follow? The new year that they follow begins at the end of the year that Yah said it is at the end of the year. The Talmud has no interest in telling you you're going to be saved and how you're going to be saved and by what means you're going to be saved and who's going to save you. Yet we have allowed the Jewish man to teach us how to walk after the ways of Yah. Well, in the book of Isaiah, the 14th chapter, Yahweh has shown us how he is going to redeem us. In Isaiah chapter 14, you begin reading in the first verse.
For Yahweh will have mercy on Yaakov, and will yet choose Israel, and set them in their own land. And the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Yaakov.
You see, Yahweh is going to put us back in our own land. You don't read this in the Quran. Even though Farrakhan and all these other ministers that have learned from Elijah Muhammad, and they call it the Nation of Islam, all these teachings that you get from your big leaders, like a Farrakhan, like a Muhammad, that they use the Quran, and the Quran never said that the nation or the tribe of Shabazz shall be brought back to their own land. Elijah Muhammad, Farrakhan, and all the other ministers from the Nation of Islam have taught you that you got to wait and that you're going to aboard the mother ship. And you never see Yahweh speak about the mother ship being taken up on the mother ship. The Quran doesn't talk about Ishmael or the Ishmaelites being returned to their own land, because the Quran teaches the Ishmaelites and the Muslims to go ahead and take the land. If they don't want to serve Islam, cut their head off. Even if they're your own brother, fight them. So you never see them talking about you're going to be brought back into your own land and strangers will be joined with you, because they don't tell you to do those things. And the New Testament tells you that you're not even going to have to worry about a land, that you're going to die and float up in the sky and have wings come out your back, and you're going to be some kind of angel. And you'll be in paradise and get caught up by the rapture. But Yahweh is the only one that tells you you're going to be redeemed to your own land. Verse 2.
And the people shall take them and bring them to their place. And the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of Yahweh for servants and handmaids. And they shall take them captives, who captives they were. And they shall rule over their oppressors.
You won't ever see in the New Testament where the Christ in the New Testament, Paul, Peter, James, John, Timothy, or Philip, or any one of them will ever tell you that Yahweh spoke to them anything, especially that you're going to be returned to your own land, and those same people that have put you in slavery, those same people that shot Mike Brown, the same people that killed Trayvon Martin, the same type of people that murdered Sam DuBose, the same kind of people that murdered Sandra Bland, that the same people are going to be your slaves. They're going to be your captives. They're going to be your handmaids and your maidservants. And you're going to rule over the same ones that oppressed you. You'll never see that in the New Testament. All the Quran does is tell you how to be a slave master, how to prostitute your daughter, how to oppress your wife. It has no interest in telling you that you're going to rule over the ones that are oppressing you when they're teaching you to be the oppressor. The Talmud don't make any mention of these situations because Yahweh is the only one that cares about black lives. If you want to really go to a Black Lives meeting, go to your local sanctuary of the House of Israel or tune in and listen to how Yah feels about black lives and what Yah said will go on with the black lives that he called his sons and daughters, the children of Israel. Verse 3.
And it shall come to pass in the day that Yahweh shall give thee rest from thy sorrow and from thy fear and from the hard bondage wherein thou wast made to serve, that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon, and say, how have the oppressor ceased, the golden city ceased? Yahweh have broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the rulers.
And so the Most High is letting you know he's the only one that's going to save you, redeem you, and you're going to have a song to sing about the destruction of your enemies and your oppressors. You won't read that in other books. You don't see that published in Newsweek. They don't put that in the magazine, The New Yorker. It's not the hot topic in the Inquirer. This is not what you're being taught in schools, and this is not what you're being taught anywhere except from the servants of Yah from the book of Yah itself. Again, Yah is the only one. And then, don't you know, all the world's religions, especially the three major ones, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, they must be validated by the word of Yah. And we're going to bring you all this and why you've been taught lies. Because these teachings, they are nothing without the word of Yah. The Quran would never be a book that you would even think about looking at if it didn't use Yahweh's word to validate itself. In the surah of Quran, the 10th surah, the 93rd to 94th ayat, it says to Muhammad, if you doubt anything that we have brought unto you, go to the people that had the book before you. Go to the children of Israel, and they will tell you. Now, why would the Quran need to tell you to go to the people of the children of Israel if it stood on its own? It wouldn't. Yahweh doesn't tell Abraham to go to the people before him that he gave the book before him. Yah doesn't tell Jacob the same thing. Yah doesn't tell Moses, you need to go to Abraham, he had the book before you. Or you need to go to Ishmael because he had the book before you. Or you need to go to Esau because he had the book before you. Yahweh gave Moses the 10 commandments and the laws written by his own hand with his own finger with Moses right in front of him. He didn't have to go to the Egyptians, even though the people that follow after the Kemetic religions tried to tell you that we had got our ways from their books. And all we ask you to do is to produce your witnesses. Bring out the book of the coming forth by day and the coming forth by night, or what you know as the book of the dead, or the Netu Netter, whatever volume you want to choose, and show us where Moses had to come to you first. But you'll see the Quran had to stand on the back of Yah's book. The New Testament tells you this in the book of Romans, the 3rd chapter. In the book of Romans, chapter 3, start reading at the first verse.
What advantage
Go ahead. Oh, that's dead. Let me read that one. It's turned up.
What advantage then have the Jew, or what profit is there of circumcision?
Keep reading.
Much every way, chiefly because that unto them were committed the oracles of God.
And what is he saying? He's saying, what advantage, what benefit has the Yehudinite? Or what profit is there of keeping the covenant of circumcision? He says, in every way, mainly or chiefly, most importantly, because unto them was given the law of Elohim. That's what the oracles of Elohim is. He said, for what if some did not believe?
Shall their unbelief make the faith of God without effect?
He said, God forbid. Let God be true and every man a liar, as it is written. So therefore, Paul, even though he tells you in the book of Galatians that circumcision profits you nothing, he right there told you that the Israelites have every advantage of keeping the law. Because the law was given to them. Because the law was given to the Yehudinite. And if you don't believe, then God forbid you don't believe. Because he said, let Yahweh be true and every man a liar. And if Yahweh told you the truth from the beginning, and then you got these other books telling you things that Yahweh didn't say, well, then I'm going to have to agree with Paul right here. Let every man be true. Let every man be a liar, and let Yahweh be the truth. Because Yahweh is the truth. And they had to use Yahweh's word to even validate what they saying. And hello, the Judaism uses the Torah. But their main book, even though they say they use the Torah or the Tanakh, their main book is that Talmud. And all the Talmud is commentary on the Holy Scriptures. That's the Talmud. If you and a couple of friends was to open up the Holy Scriptures and say, in the beginning, Elohim made the heavens and the earth, and then you started writing commentary on that and how you see it and how you believe it. That's what the Talmud is. Yah's law tells you that you shall not seethe a kid in his mother's milk, literally letting you know, don't boil a baby calf in the milk of his mother. That's cruel. Yeah, that's real cruel. If the calf wants his mother's milk, would you lure him into the pot by the smell of his mother's milk, and then you're going to boil him in it? That's cruel. But the Talmud, because these Edomites, these people of Esau, decided, well, that means I'm not going to melt cheese and put it on my burger. That means I'm not going to put milk and beef or milk and lamb or milk and goat in the same refrigerator.
90 seconds.
Why would they tell you that? Because they're taking you away from the word of the Most High. And they aren't trying to teach you the truth. But they needed to use the book of Yah to even validate anything they're telling you. Even science needs to use Yah's word to validate what they're telling you. They say it like this. In the
60
beginning,
seconds.
there was a big bang. And that's why you see that it says, let there be light. They are all science is attempting to do is explain what the Most High made, which he already wrote in the book of Genesis. And they, of course, corrupted. And lastly, what did Yahweh say? And why did Yahweh say he did these things? Go to the book of Deuteronomy 32. In Deuteronomy, the 32nd chapter, verse 26 it reads here. It's Deuteronomy 32, verse 26.
10 seconds.
I said, I will scatter them into the corners. I will make the remembrance of them to cease from among men. Were it not that I feared the wrath of the enemy?
You see what Yah said? Because we have disobeyed him, he scattered us into the corners. And he made the remembrance of us cease from among men. And then the Most High showed us this in Psalms 83. Start reading at verse 4.
They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance.
Yeah, if you want to cut off a nation, which they have done, which they have attempted to do, they got to take away your name. They got to take away your sense of time. They got to take away every law and every cultural aspect about yourself and make it somebody else's and make it theirs. And who did this? Say, for they have consulted together with one consent.
They are confederate against thee.
The tabernacles of
Edom.
And that's the so-called Jewish man today. And we're going to teach you the history about Edom and Esau and why we are able to show and prove to you this is the man you know as the Jewish man today. The very first man mentioned, the very first nation mentioned to cut you off and to attempt to destroy the remembrance of Israel from under the heaven is Edom.
And the Ishmaelites.
The Ishmaelites, Islam, the second largest religion on earth.
Of Moab and the Hagarenes, Yibal, Ammon, and Amalek, the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre.
And these are the Gentiles and the nations and the heathens that are in on cutting Israel off from being a nation. And who controls all the money? Esau. Who controls all the media? Esau. Who controls the world resources? Ishmael. Who is controlling everything that would take you, that would have the power in the machine to try to take you away from what you know? These people Yahweh just mentioned. In the last scripture I'll have you read is in the book of Jeremiah, the 6th chapter. See, when nations are joining together to cut you off, and they're being effective because you believe you got to go to them to learn, to do anything, and the truth of the matter is they're lying to you. They've been lying to you, and all they want to do is destroy you. And then you ask yourself, has the black man and woman in America ever had a time while in this country to perform, exercise, and even know how to utilize self-determination? And the answer, of course, is no. But if you want to be able to have sovereignty over your own self, look what Yah said in Jeremiah 6, verse 16.
Thus says Yahweh, stand ye in the ways.
Stand in the ways.
And see.
And see.
And ask for the old paths.
Ask for the old paths. Not asking Esau or the Jewish man. You don't go to your Christian preacher who's been teaching you about these lies of the Gentiles. Don't go to the Muslim imam who's teaching you about somebody that's not you. Ask for the old paths.
Where is the good way?
Where is a good way?
And walk therein.
And when they show you, when the servants of Yah show you the good way, walk in it.
And ye shall find rest for your souls.
And this is how you're going to get the rest that you so desperately long for. That we so desperately long for. So we can stop seeing the oppression, the degradation, the dilapidation, the assimilation and the complete destruction and genocide that is going on with our people. There's genocide happening with the people of Israel today, and no one has stood up to say a word about it. But Yah's servants are standing up to tell you the truth, that Yahweh is the only Elohim. He's the only one that has spoken about everything that has happened, that is happening, and that will ever happen to you and I and the children of Israel. And we'll be bringing you all this truth this week. Until tomorrow, Yahweh loves you very much, and so do we at the House of Israel. Shalom.
To you, my Yah, do I lift up my soul and trust.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.